Y'all want to see something funny? Y'all want to see something funny? Donald Trump cussed out the Supreme Court after they told him his tariffs were illegal. This is hilarious.
About this. Yeah, Pamela, we still have no official reaction from the White House or President Trump. We are waiting. I am told that they are meeting, discussing how they are going to respond. But we have learned more about what happened in the room when President Trump was with those governors and he learned of the Supreme Court decision. Apparently, the breakfast had been going well. They were working together. And then President Trump became enraged. He started ranting about the decision, not only calling it a disgrace, but started attacking the courts, at one point saying, "These effing courts," but using the actual language there. We know that President Trump does use expletives on quite often when he is enraged in particular. Now, this, of course, comes as this tariff policy. This could not be a bigger decision for President Trump. This could not be a bigger loss for President Trump. Not only is so much of his economic agenda based on these tariffs, so much of his foreign policy is based on these tariffs. He has used these tariffs as leverage in almost every meeting that he has had around the world. He has touted them as the most important part of the economic agenda. So clearly a huge loss, and he recognizes that today.
Huge loss. How you going into the midterms taking the biggest loss of any president? This is the biggest L any president in America has had. And he has to go into midterms knowing every American now knows he has ripped them off thousands of dollars with these tariffs. Where's our tariff money? Where's the rebates? He's not hungry anymore. He should just... Woo! Oh my gosh. This is Happy Friday. Happy Black History Month. No wonder he was upset yesterday. Woo! Woo! Breakfast over. He didn't cuss out the Supreme Court. Who cusses out the Supreme Court like that? Oh my gosh. I'm done with Donald Trump. Woo! Woo! Them tariffs. Tariffs are illegal.
Jesus Christ, I just watched Donald Trump's batshit presser, so you didn't have to, and oh my God, how embarrassing that this is our president, and oh, is he pissed. Like, he called the justices who ruled against him disgraceful. He really talked a lot about how he's going to find other ways to keep these tariffs on, and he seems to be saying that he's going to raise some other kinds of tariffs higher to make up for the income he will lose from this Supreme Court ruling. In other words, he is not backing down from tariffs at all.
Today, I will sign an order to impose a 10% global tariff under Section 122 over and above our normal tariffs already being charged.
The increase he's talking about right here actually can only be used for a limited amount of time, but he won't say that here because you have to remember Trump's ego has just taken a huge blow. His central policy has just been ruled down by the Supreme Court. He feels stupid, so now he's talking about increasing tariffs. And when a reporter asks him, well, why don't you just work with Congress?
Well, why wouldn't you just work with Congress to come up with a plan?
I don't have to
push tariffs.
I have the right to do tariffs, and I've always had the right to do tariffs. It has all been approved by Congress.
Article 1, Section 8 of the Constitution gives that power to Congress. They control taxes and trade. Like, literally the whole 3 co-equal branches of government thing is meaningless to him, just as the Constitution is. He can grab anything he wants by the you-know-what. It's not just women he thinks he doesn't need consent for. It's anything. Does he care about the fact that Americans are genuinely suffering under these tariffs? No.
I say quite simply, which I've said for a long time, make America great again. And interestingly, we've already made it great, so I don't have...
We've already made it great. Americans can't pay for health insurance. They can't afford their groceries. They can't afford a home. They can't afford to send their kids to college. There are no jobs. There's no manufacturing. Construction is in a free fall. Farms and ranches are failing because of these tariffs. Doesn't care. It's great for him because he and his friends are getting rich. Y'all, this continues until enough of us stand up and say this man is incompetent and he needs to go. Or Republicans in Congress could just do their jobs, but don't hold your breath.
Devastating is right. This is a huge blow to this White House and to this President. Trump, in the lead up to this decision, had said that a ruling against his tariffs would be, quote, devastating and a terrible blow to the U.S. economy and national security. He has used these tariffs as the main leverage, not just for negotiating deals with other foreign countries, economic deals, but also as a pressure point in his foreign policy. All of that now coming into question. He has argued that these tariffs have brought great wealth and national security to the country. The government has collected at least $89 billion in revenue from these tariffs. They could now be asked to refund all of that. There is a lot of questions about what happens to the money that has been collected so far and what happens to the deals that the president has been negotiating based off of these tariffs. What happens to other issues like, for instance, pharmaceutical prices, for which he has used these tariffs as a point of leverage to argue new deals to bring down pharmaceutical prices with other countries. So it is the ripple effects of this will be tremendous. What does it mean for the manufacturing here in the U.S., as the president has argued, has been boosted by the threat of these tariffs? Now, it does seem the president perhaps maybe knew that this decision was coming in very uncharacteristic fashion here at the White House just a very short time ago. The president is actually currently meeting with governors here at the White House, normally something that the press would be allowed to cover. Instead, the president brought in the cameras and quickly ushered the media out in a way that we don't normally see. I can tell you this, based off of the president's comments in the lead up to this, while we haven't gotten a reaction from him just yet, he certainly is likely to be deeply frustrated and angry about this decision, Kira.
The Supreme Court has officially ruled that the tariffs that Donald Trump, aka the King of Hialeah, tried to impose on the entire world are illegal and unconstitutional. Why? Well, a 6-3 majority in the Supreme Court found that Trump illegally used the International Emergency Economic Powers Act of 1977, this old obscure law, to try to set up these tariffs on more than 100 countries. Many of them are allies. You see, that law gives presidents some kind of power to regulate the way the economy works in the US when there is a national emergency. But the court said, hey, Trump, you don't have the right to do that. You cannot impose taxes under this law. Only Congress can impose taxes. Why? Because we have a constitution, separation of powers. That's the way our country and our democracy has worked for centuries now. Now, that's the legal aspect of it, right? That he basically illegally did this unconstitutionally without consulting Congress. Statutorily, it was wrong. A lot of different issues, right? But what is the economic impact that this is going to have on us, on the average consumer in this country? Well, the U.S. Treasury has collected about $240 billion in tariff revenue since April 2nd, 2025, labeled Liberation Day. You guys remember last year when Trump had a press conference and he brought out a huge poster with a bunch of different countries on it and the percentages that he was going to impose tariffs on each and every single one of these countries? Yeah, it looked like one of those trifold posters that you would use in like middle school or elementary school to do like a science project. That. So now, if this country is forced to issue refunds, the cost would run to about $120 billion, or 0.5% of our country's GDP. As if the economy wasn't already in such terrible shape in this country, right? As if affordability wasn't terrible, inflation, everything. We literally had to bail out American farmers and subsidize them with billions of dollars so their farms could keep operating and keep producing food for us to eat every day in this country because of these tariffs. Because these tariffs were basically putting them out of business. Funny because a lot of these farmers voted for Trump, donated to his campaign, but I digress. And of course, Trump got mad at this not going his way and said that the justices that ruled against him were very unpatriotic and disloyal to our Constitution, saying that he was ashamed of them. And he also accused them of being swayed by foreign interests and unnamed slime balls and sleazeballs from other countries. He did not elaborate. All of Donald Trump's economic policy just contributes to more instability, more problems in our economy and the global economy, the trust other countries have in doing business with us, in investing in our country, all that. But let me know what you guys think in the comments.
Okay, so remember a couple months ago when people were buying things online and at some points they were getting hit with like a DHL or a shipping bill for the tariffs? Yeah, that all was struck down today. So the Supreme Court ruled after months of deliberation that the IEEPA, which was the legal source for all of these, well, not all, many of these tariffs was struck down for being unconstitutional, which now means that according to Wharton's estimations, the refunds that are owed to individual companies, but maybe individuals like you, are going to be in the realm of $175 billion. The problem is the US government right now has no idea how they're going to issue those refunds. All of that news is going to be decided probably in the coming days and weeks, but stay tuned and I will try my best to cover it all while we advise our clients on what to do as well.
In a 6-3 decision, the Supreme Court shuts down Trump's tariffs. And while many on the left and the establishment cheer on the downfall of America because they fail to realize the national security implications of this, there are next steps. First, let's remind everybody of the reason why this is all being done in the first place, and that is the vulnerability in the supply chain. There are certainly other reasons, but that was the primary one, that China had such a hold on our supply chain that it became a national security risk. Of course, many of this was centered around manufacturing, and manufacturing has been on a downward trend for the last 30 years. So all parties, all presidents are responsible for overseeing this, or that the fact that it happened underneath their administration. And many that are making profits off of this are saying that manufacturing is not a national security risk. Now that sounds nice in a seminar, but like most academic theories, it fails in reality. Because competition is only competition when the rules are the same, and the rules aren't the same, and they never have been. We have never had free trade, despite what all the economists have been trying to sell us for the last 30 years, and we most certainly have never had fair trade. A lot of countries, namely China, don't beat us because they're better. They beat us because of procurement walls and subsidies and unfair trade practices and non-tariff barriers. And then they turn around and sell into our market on the cheap. And ironically, this is something that Nancy Pelosi railed against in the 90s. And in case you're unclear about the argument, they could sell cheap goods into our economy, but we could not sell goods, or cheap goods for that matter, into theirs. Now, SCOTUS has shot down Trump's tariff strategy underneath a particular rule. That doesn't end the mission, that merely changes it. The president still has tools. Section 232 allows for investigations into whether imports have national security threats. And this is something that the pandemic proved because we couldn't get our needed medications and our needed PPE in a time of crisis because China wouldn't allow us to have it. Section 301 targets unfair foreign practices, something that many countries have been doing to us for many years. And it also safeguards and protects industries from import surges, something China is guilty of. And dumping and subsidies cases allows us to hit cheaters with duties based off of evidence, which is also something that China does. Now, does this mean that the Trump administration has to put in the work? Absolutely. But SCOTUS, with this ruling, has made it extremely clear that this is the path the Trump administration is constitutionally allowed to take. And so the argument isn't tariffs forever on everything. It is secure the strategic sectors so that America can stay secure and prosper, which will allow America to mobilize, maintain readiness, and onshore and nearshore critical infrastructure. This will ensure that China cannot leverage the supply chain as a weakness against America in the future. Listen, the bottom line is this. If you outsource your industrial capacity, you do not get peace. You get subservience, dependency, and ultimately defeat. Now, ultimately, the blame for all of this falls on Congress and on both parties. The idea that the president has the authority to end an economic relationship with a foreign country, but doesn't have that same authority to adjust that relationship, say through tariffs, is ridiculous. And so while Section 232 and Section 301 mitigate this and provide different avenues to still effectuate the adjustments of this relationship, it still ultimately hinders America because other foreign nations do not have to go through this level of scrutiny to do the same to us. But if you're curious if you should support this or not, I feel like the position is pretty clear. On one hand, you want America to be safe, secure, and successful. And on the other hand, you want America to be subservient to China. One is pro-American, the other is not.
Hello everyone, my name is Juan Diego Ramirez. I'm a freelance journalist, and this is what's happening. President Donald Trump has suffered a major setback with one of his key policies. The U.S. Supreme Court has struck down his global tariffs, ruling that he exceeded his legal authority when he imposed them under emergency powers. In a 6-3 decision, the court found that the International Emergency Economic Powers Act of 1977, or the IEEPA, does not authorize a president to impose broad, tax-like tariffs without clear approval from Congress. The majority said that the Constitution gives Congress the power to levy taxes and duties, and that the statute cited by the administration did not clearly transfer that authority to the executive branch. The case focused on tariffs placed on imports from China, Mexico, Canada, and other major trading partners. The Trump administration argued that the measures were necessary to protect U.S. economic and national security interests, but the court concluded that the IEEPA was intended for limited emergency actions, not sweeping global trade policy. Chief Justice John Roberts wrote the majority opinion, joined by both conservative and liberal justices, signaling that the ruling centered on constitutional limits rather than the merits of the tariffs themselves. In an updated response Friday afternoon, Trump called the ruling wrong and politically motivated and said that he is exploring alternative legal authorities to reinstate tariffs. Trump also urged Congress to quickly pass legislation restoring broad executive tariff powers. The decision leaves open a major question: whether companies that pay the now invalid tariffs could seek refunds. The ruling marks one of the most significant limits on presidential economic authority in years, placing the power over tariffs squarely back into the hands of Congress as it was intended. To learn more about how these tariffs have impacted small businesses, please head to my website, juandiegoramirez.com, where I wrote about how small businesses in New York have suffered from the Trump tariffs and how they struggle to keep afloat. For more, please like and follow this page. Also bring you more.
Poor little Donnie. The Supreme Court just told him that he can't use a 1977 law anymore to impose punitive tariffs on the entire world. Imposing tariffs is actually something that Congress is supposed to do, not the president. Now, there are ways that the president can impose tariffs, but Trump was using a 1977 law, and the Supreme Court ruled that he can't use that law. Now, he's collected about $133 billion using these tariffs already, and a lot of the people who have been paying it are planning on suing to have it refunded to them. Now, most corporations just pass that extra cost on to the consumers like you and me. So if they get the refund on that $133 billion, that's going to come out of our pockets. And since the corporations mostly just pass those costs on to the consumers, at least as far as I can tell, the American public have been screwed twice by Donald Trump's tariffs.
The Supreme Court has just struck down Trump's tariffs. I'm a lawyer in real life. I don't play well on television. Let's talk about who's going to be the winners and losers in this case. The clear loser is the Trump White House. They had imposed these tariffs under a law that had not been used by any other president. The law used was the International Emergency Economic Powers Act. This was a 6-3 ruling. The three dissenters was Thomas, Alito, and Kavanaugh. In this decision, the Supreme Court has said that Congress did not give the executive branch the power to do this. The Supreme Court has also opened the door to allow Congress to take back the powers that it has ceded to Donald Trump. But who are the big winners and losers as a result of this case? The big winners are going to be the corporations like Costco, Goodyear, Staples. Those corporations have already sued the government for a refund for the tariffs that they have had to pay. Who's going to be the big losers? Me and you. Because we've paid over $1,000 in 2025 in tariff taxes. We're never going to get that money back. We're never going to see it. But if you think the people, the American citizens, that we should be able to file a class action, let me know in the comments, because this is something that needs to be fully explored. Does this mean Trump cannot come back with tariffs? No, it does not. But he used this particular law to impose a tariff on virtually every country in the world, at least a 10% tariff. On Mexico, China, and Canada, he imposed additional tariffs based on his claim that they were allowing fentanyl into the United States. Now, there are ways for him to legally bring tariffs. One could be Congress could agree to these tariffs. Congress could pass these tariffs. There are also some other laws that he could use, but those laws also have some procedural safeguards that he didn't want to have to adhere to. But you all let me know what you think in the comments. And if you want to file a lawsuit against this administration to get the money back that you've paid in tariffs, let me know in the comments.